Well, we got the new JP guy. It's a fat almost 7 in the morning over here waiting for this guy's details. And I have never been more disappointed, I think, for the entirety of this year over on the JP version. Pope Joanna was, kind of, I don't want to say like a mid release, but she at least has good stuff going for her, right? Like she's at least a solid servant. She's just not really needed. Takasugi was a little bit disappointing, but it's like, well, he has like this kind of cool crit niche coming out, and I was still holding out hope that maybe we got like a really crazy quick servant or like a support later on that year that can make him really, really strong. But this dude, no sugarcoating it, I think he's just absolutely mid. I mean, this guy, I'm still just flabbergasted. Like, is there just part of his kit that we're not seeing? Is there some insane mechanic that's buried in the files for FGO for this guy? Because what he is an AoE Buster Rider, and he's got all the stuff you would expect. Like, okay, you hear AoE Buster Rider, he's going to be along the lines of like, say, Drake, or even if not on Drake's level, maybe he's like an Iskandar where he doesn't have like a fat battery, you're not using him for farming, but maybe he's like new age Iskandar, just does humongous damage. Because if you come down here and you look at how much damage Iskandar does, I mean, you might not be able to use him for farming, but man, if they gave him like just any little buff, this guy is doing like single target damage. But no, that's not what this guy is doing. What they want you to do with this guy, if I'm getting in their heads and seeing what they want to do for this unit, it looks like they want him to be an AoE like CQ style servant, which just is not what you want to be doing, right? If you're going into CQs, you generally do want to be using your single targets because they just do more damage and you'll probably get through that fight a bit easier. But here's the part where they messed up. They didn't give him like any mechanics at all whatsoever. There's like nothing for him to do when going into difficult content. And I mean, some of his skills are really barren. I mean, this first skill over here, I saw this, and then me and a buddy were kind of discussing. We're like, maybe if you look at the rest of his kit, maybe he can like Black Grail farm. Like that's maybe the intended purpose, because spoiler alert, this guy does absolutely no damage. Like this guy's damage is through the floor. Like this guy is not taking anything out. Like do not be deceived if you see him, farming in the new event. It's like he's doing crazy damage. It's like, remember, he's got event power mod. When this event leaves, this guy is gonna suck. Like he's gonna be terrible. But you look at this, you're like, okay, cool. He gives like 20% attack to the entire party, and he reduces somebody's skill cooldown. So like maybe you could use that on himself to try to like Black Grail farm, or maybe you want to use it on your Koyenskayas or your Merlins, stuff along those lines to maybe get their skills back up. That's good, but like, where's the rest of it? Where's the rest of my meal, Lasengle? Like, where is my Buster buff, my stars, my NP regen, a power mod, a build-up mechanic, anything to attach to this? And some of you guys might be saying, well, I've looked at the rest of his kit. He's got, like, stars and stuff like that. That's not the point. The point is, where is the rest of the meal? You know what I'm saying? Like, I've got my fries. I've got my drink. Where's the burger? Like, where is the actual main part of the meal? There's nothing here. It's just such a basic skill for what is essentially almost a year 9 servant. You guys understand, we are almost at year 9 and we're getting bare bone skills like this. But you know what? I wouldn't be that upset if the other skills were really, really strong. And to be fair, skills 2 and 3 on their own look really, really strong. You have a 30% buster buff over here for 3 turns. That's solid. A 50% battery, and you bomb 20 stars. That's not a bad skill. You're getting a decent chunk of damage. A 50% battery is good pretty much everywhere, right? If you want to use them as a farmer, it's great for that. It's pretty much the best battery you can have because it almost lets you do whatever you want with Buster farming, aside from like Black Grail farming, unless you're just Melusine and you have like 130% battery, or your R Suite and you have 100%. I'm going to keep calling her R Suite because I know it makes people upset. So go ahead, type it in the comments down below. Look, I guarantee I'm more frustrated right now waiting for this release than you are about the pronunciation of R Suite or Arquite or whatever you want to call it. But then the stars is also nice. It lets him do big buster crits. That would be nice in theory, but this guy doesn't even have like a scaling crit niche like say Takasugi does. Like I mentioned him earlier, like he was a little bit disappointing, but at the very least he had the idea that he's an AoE quick unit, so he could just bomb a lot of stars and then he could do a lot of crit damage. It's like, so he didn't get like a power mod or anything, but he would stack crit damage and do really, really big crits. So in that aspect, it's like he did have a gimmick. It wasn't like the most crazy thing, but at least there's something there. But again, you look at the second skill, it's looking strong. It's just there's nothing to capitalize on it. I mean, you look at the third skill, this is crazy. Any just decent single target servant would kill to have a skill this good. It is a 3-time invincibility for 3 turns, 500 damage cut flat out for 3 turns, and he's getting 30% NP gain. This is crazy, right? Like this guy, if you look at the shell of his kit right now, you're like, okay, dude, he's got really strong survivability. He's going to be fairly tanky. He's going to have great NP gain. He's going to be doing decent damage, or you would assume he would be doing some decent damage. He has stars on demand, but then there's just a little problem with the NP. The NP doesn't really do anything. You can see that maybe he was supposed to be like an Iskandar. You see this 8-hit NP? This is like what Iskandar, Emiya, Raiko, what these people have, where they've got fat star gen and high hit buster NPs, although technically Emiya, before you type it out, can swap to being an arts unit, but originally was a buster unit. You have these very strong, these buster NPs that can just bomb a lot of stars, so then you could capitalize on that. But then there's no crit star buff. There's none of that at all whatsoever, right? Like, it's not like he's got insanely high natural star gen or anything. Like, it's fine. It's what you would expect from a rider, but it's nothing super insane. And then, you know, he applies the Omni card down on people and he NP seals everybody, which this I wouldn't normally be that mad about, because I'm like, okay, so clearly designed for more CQ style content. That's good. You know, I don't want to take away from this that if you're using with like double Merlin or like Merlin Koyenskaya, Merlin Waver, whatever team you have set up for this guy, none of those guys really offer just a flat NPC. Like even Waver just drains NP, right? And Merlin gives you raw survivability with the invincibility party-wide buff. Like that's all nice, but then it's just like, what are we doing with this? Because let's just peel the band-aid off of this. This guy's damage is looking terrible. Now, before someone's like, oh, that's Europa, it doesn't matter who it actually is, right? Like, you just input the attack. You know, it's a very simple calculator. They just don't have the guy's name in here, but this is his attack with foes. You know, his NP multiplier is 300% because it's an AoE buster NP. He's got a 30% buster buff, 20% attack buff, and his damage is real bad. Now, one thing that I did think about is that maybe, it doesn't say here, but maybe this 20% demerit right here, not demerit, but defense down technically, because it's a resistance down, maybe that does apply first. I have not been able to find a single person on JP, friend or not, that has pulled this person, and he's been out for like an hour. Like, I wanted to go test this myself, but dude, I am getting ridiculously tired, and I do not care enough for like the confirmation of, is he doing 19 on average or 22 on average? Ooh, real big difference. Is he basically like a free-to-play unit, or is he, I don't know, doing the damage of like Baiken, Odysseus, and Taigong? But even then, I'm not saying that to spite them, because they at least have things. Taigong has triple damage mods, right? Like, his natural damage is so low because, look at this, bro. You find some of these power mods, bro is going sicko mode on people. You know, Baiken over here has power mods. It has like little buildups she's able to do. So really, her damage is going to be a little bit higher than what you're seeing right here. And Odysseus, I mean, on the fact that he's like, what, a year 5 unit, at the very least, he's at least got something for going into difficult content, is that he's able to always pretty much get his NP to hit, right? Because he's always going to remove their defensive buffs. Now, obviously, they could have like an unremovable dodge, unremovable invincibility, but you get what I'm saying. They at least gave him that in mind, right? And again, he is a year 5 servant. He is almost 4 years, you know, older than this guy. You know, the fact that he's even doing this at all and is like decent enough in the challenge quests, I think speaks enough for how good that he is technically aging. But it's just sad, man, because I looked everywhere. I was like, does he have a crazy passive? Like, remember when Koyenskaya came out, I was like, dude, it's crazy. She has 20% built-in NP damage, which turns out she kind of needed, but it was at least nice that it was caked into her kit, because it played very nicely with Oberon, who came out like just a little bit after that. So I don't know what they were cooking with this guy, but it's like almost offensively bad how bad this guy is. Like, it's so, just put it, okay, think about it like this. You know, it looks like he is a generic servant. I can't really tell if he is limited because they don't put it on here. And obviously the game doesn't tell you if it's limited, and I cannot understand the JP live stream. But if he is not limited, because regardless if he is or not, it doesn't really demean the point I'm about to make. If he is a generic guy, you would rather be pulling Drake, right? Like, Drake is insane. And you could say, well, but Drake has all these new buffs. Dog, she's a year 1 servant, right? Like, you should be busting out the gate with a year 9 servant servant being at least comparable to a year 1 servant with buffs, like, come on, like, you do have to kind of sell these new units. Like, I'm not saying we got to power creep stuff out of just the stratosphere, but you do have to sell these new units. You have to make people want to go for them, right? And I get it. It's like, well, you know, FGO, you go for your husbandus and your waifus, but at some point, you're gonna need good units to get through the game, right? Like, at some point, you do have to make these really strong guys that can get you through the content. And even then, if you have the point of, well, it's a game about just going for your husbandus and waifus, then even more so do you need to make the new servants a little bit better, because by that line of logic, you're not incentivized to summon for any of the new, like, offensive guys, right? So you gotta make them decent. And bro is just supremely mid. And I don't know why it also just, like, rubs me the wrong way, but we have kind of had a slow period over here on JP. Like, the Juan Gina event, I think, just completely killed any momentum that we had going forward, like, towards the end of the year, because it was the arcade collaboration event, which was a banger, and then we moved into Anniversary, which, you know, I liked. I think Ace the Saber is a very cool idea, even if it is just very Saberface heavy, leaning into the summer event. But the summer event I thought was a banger. The units, some of them were just generically good, but I feel like you do need to just have your Castorias and your summer not Merlins, but Melusines, who are just good guys that kind of are like, yeah, they don't like make Ibuki, you know, irrelevant, but you probably would like to go for this unit if you want to improve your farming game, or if you want to improve your how would I word it? Like your CQ potential? I don't know, for Castoria over there, right? Regardless, they're still good, but we also have interesting new guys. Like we have UDK Bargus, who at least has the ability to swap between her NP types. And you have Chloe, who opened the doors to so many different like new setups that you could do, kind of breathe some fresh life into the game. But that event just pretty much knocked the winds out of my sails, right? Because it was just no missions, no nothing tied to it at all. And then we move into GudaGuda, which is like, oh, finally, we're getting GudaGuda, and then we're going to get a Christmas. They're going to be 2 bangers, and all I can say is I'm hoping for Banner 2. Banner 2 has, or it looks like it's going to be this chick with like white hair, and she got like a little black flowery thing in her hair. Can't really tell what that is because I can only see her on the banner, but let's hope that's part 2, and let's hope whoever was cooking in the kitchen, you know, was not making that unit. I don't know what it is about the GudaGuda units, but right before I came into this, I had this little theory that I was throwing my my friend's way. I was like, dude, think about it. Like, Okita Alter drops, and she's kind of mid, and just now she's getting to like a really good point, but she drops, she's kind of mid. You have Avenger Nobu, who I was always a huge stan of, but I can definitely admit that she was a little mid on release. And then you have Takasugi coming out, who people are saying is pretty mid on release. You have Sakamoto, like Lancer, who people are like, that's kind of mid on release. I don't know who has a vendetta against these GudaGuda units. I mean, look what they did to Summer Okita. I mean, they fixed her, but then initially it's like, nah, she just self-stuns herself, right? It's like, why are we doing this? I don't know who has the vendetta, the hit placed out on these guys, but bro, Losengo, hire me. I'll make the units, right? It's not going to be dummy broken. I know how to power creep units and kind of integrate them in well. You know, I'm putting my offer out there. If you need a guy to help you, like, I don't know, show you how it's done, let me get in there. But, dude, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, because this guy just, I don't know, the title of this video, especially because it's like 7 in the morning at this point, is probably going to end up being like the most mid-release of 2023. And he might not be the most mid-release, but I am flabbergasted. What am I missing? There has to be something, right? Is there just a big NP damage buff I'm not seeing? Does he have a power mod secretly? Are we mistranslating this guy? Are there details we're not seeing? Because it's just absolutely flabbergasting. I just don't understand what they're doing. That someone like Odysseus, who is almost 4 years his senior, is comparable, if not maybe, if you really want to debate it and you want to go like back and forth, you might be able to say he's a bit better, which I think is a little bit of a stretch to say that Odysseus is better than him, but we're really splitting hairs. And the fact that you can even raise that as a question and, you know, maybe have a discussion about it, I think is saying a lot. I mean, dude, even when this was coming out, because Europa came out and I was like one of her biggest defenders, because I'm like, she's actually not even all that bad. But if I was pulling and this is a dude that could pop up in my gacha, I almost might rather have Europa, because it's like, well, she has that skill, but it's just for free for her. She doesn't have the 50% battery, but 30% is functionally the same thing when you're doing buster farming, if that's your main gripe, and her normal damage is just more free, right? Because here's the other thing. Let's say, final gripe, let's say this does apply before you do damage. What if the boss or the, person you're farming against, whichever scenario you're using this in, what if they just have like decent debuff resistance? Oh, you whiff that? I guess you're doing potato damage. And unfortunately, bro ain't Arjuna Alter. Like, he can't lean on the fact that, okay, well, maybe I missed my, my buster down on this guy, but really I have power mod against anybody with like a debuff. So like, you could at least try to insulate it by forcing a stun with Plug Suit, or the fact that he's a berserker and his natural damage will just be a little bit higher because he's super effective. I don't know. I'm out of here. What would I rank this guy? Let me just think as like a letter grading, because I've been doing letter gradings for these guys. I don't know, D-, like F. Maybe it's not that bad, but that's how I feel. Like a D, like C, probably is unironically a C+ because he just has good stuff. But I don't want to say that. D, terrible. D for Dookie Dog Water. All right, that's the review. I'm out. Peace.